minutes.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. We'll start the discussion now. So welcome, everyone. This panel is titled Scaling Modern Power Infrastructure with Electric Cooking. And as we talk about, I think the majority of the attention of this forum is about transitioning to renewables and also how to urgently solve the climate crisis. And on both those angles, I think electric cooking is becoming so important. I attended the last forum in 2019, and I remember there were some discussions on electric cooking, and they were mostly around product research. It was quite early. I think there was some product prototyping being done, but in the last 3 years, we have seen electric cooking come such a long way. We have some commercial products in the market, and we'll hear a little bit about that today as well. And in different markets, not only in one market, and we have so many different types of business model which are serving electric cooking as well. So we are very impressed with how much electric cooking has come a long way forward. And the objective of our time here today is to just share some of the thinking around how we can scale electric cooking using an integrated energy planning approach, which is at the nexus of just power infrastructure and national level policy making, as well as some of the solutions which exist today, such as magnetic induction cooker and electric pressure cookers as well. Magnetic induction stove and electric pressure cooker as well. And I'll quickly introduce, we have a fantastic group of panelists here, and there's a representation from the government, from research organizations, market building organizations, and the private sector here. So first of all, we have Dr. Anna Clements from modern energy cooking services, and she leads the research work in Tanzania and Uganda on electric cooking for the organization. We have Dr. Surendra Lavkarna, who is member of the Nepal Planning Commission, and he oversees water, irrigation, and energy infrastructure for the Nepal government, and SDG 7 effort also comes under his overview as well. We have we have Irene Vanjohi. She's the principal customer relations officer at Kenya Power and Lighting Company, and the KPLC has over 8 million customers, and 90% of the electricity which they provide is through renewable resources as well. And finally, we have Ben Jeffries, who is the CEO of ATEC. ATEC is a climate tech company which distributes both electric cooking solutions as well as biogas solutions in Cambodia and Bangladesh. And they are increasingly getting into the carbon space, and Ben will talk a little bit about that as well. Before we start the discussion, I also wanted to get a sense of who is in the audience. So can you just raise your hand if you work in the electric cooking sector, either in the government, company, or consultant, any part of the value chain? If you can just raise your hand so that we can be a little bit aware of. All right, so that we have like roughly 20 people in the room who know about the solution as well. Also, as a consumer, just wanted to get a sense of who are the people who use electric solutions in their houses, whether it is any types of solutions, pressure cooker. Perfect, yeah, so we have good representation, good experience in the room as well in terms of people knowing about electric solutions. I want to first start off with Anna here, and Anna, working for MEX, has a very good understanding of just the landscape of the electric cooking sector in terms of the financing, in terms of just integration with or conversation around just the integrated energy planning, as well as, Anna, if you can talk a little bit about what countries are getting a lot of traction on electric cooking, and what are some of the products available in the market today?
Thank you. So I'll just give a quick setting the scene intro of the synergy that's possible, bringing together the electricity sector and the clean cooking sector and how they can mutually support each other. So it's said that $130 million goes into the clean cooking sector each year. But what do we need? Well, depending on what we're aiming for in terms of what we aim for in terms of clean cooking, what we count as clean cooking, and our assumptions, there are some different answers. The IEA estimates that we need 4.5 billion to 7 billion a year to get everyone to tier 2 and above by 2030. MEX and ESMAP modeling of a scenario to get everyone to tier 4 and 5 by 2030 needs 150 billion a year. And their tier 2 scenario is about 10 billion a year. So we often hear this big lament about the funding gap between what is going into clean cooking and what is needed. But by looking at it like that, we're not necessarily seeing the opportunity for leveraging investment that's already going on in the energy access sector, specifically the electricity sector. So what's going on in the electricity sector? IEA investment reports say that we have about 110 billion a year going into electricity networks in sub-Saharan Africa, India, and developing Asia. That's new generation, pivoting to renewables, transmission and distribution, increasing access, upkeep, etc. About 40 billion of that you can isolate just as improving access. This is a huge amount of investment going in. Every dollar of that investment is potentially an investment in clean cooking through electric cooking. So electric cooking is now a viable opportunity for households. It is cheaper in many places for people to cook with electricity with the new efficient appliances compared to charcoal and gas. By the appliances, I mean like the electric pressure cooker, rice cooker, so insulated appliances, but also induction stoves, kettles, even new appliances such as air fryers, which are a really good substitute for roasted foods or deep fried foods. So in Ghana, it's actually 2 to 4 times cheaper to cook with these highly efficient appliances compared to charcoal and gas. And we'll be talking more about that. We're launching the Ghanaian e-cookbook, the energy cookbook, later at the reception at the end of this day, and there'll be some e-cooking demos, so do look out for that at the reception. It's also suitable for the menu. For East Africa, between 80 and 90% of the traditional foods can be cooked on an electric pressure cooker, which is the most efficient of all these appliances. So we know now that electric cooking is viable in terms of cost to the cook, in terms of taste, in terms of usability. So we have all of this investment going into the modern power infrastructure. And that investment is laying the groundwork for a household to find $50 to $70 or be helped to find $50 to $70 for an electric cooking appliance which gives them a truly clean cooking experience. There is an opportunity here for us to leverage the gains, existing and planned gains, in modern energy, to use that investment with a multiplier effect on clean cooking. Even just slanting 5% of the investment already going into the electricity infrastructure towards integrated energy planning, so including e-cooking, would make a huge difference. Coming up with innovative business models, financial models, making sure household wiring is up to scratch would be transformational. And of course, it goes back the other way. Electric cooking can support the modern power infrastructure. It can help to stimulate demand, which increases revenue, which benefits the sector, which means that service providers are able to provide a better service for their customers. So more and more countries are now doing work in this area. We're going to hear from Kenya and Nepal on this excellent panel, but also Bangladesh, India, Uganda. These countries are exploring having electricity surpluses, which electric cooking can help them deal with. They're looking into drawing up national e-cooking strategies and roadmaps. And they are aligning finance so that investment going into the electricity sector can be leveraged for the clean cooking challenge.
Thank you, Anna. And that was a great overview of just the overall sector and how electric cooking is progressing in a lot of different places. Now I wanted to zoom in a little bit on just one country example. And Nepal has really sort of in the last few years really focused on electric cooking from an integrated energy planning sort of angle. And so Dr. Surendra, if you are able to just give us some insight into what is the experience of electric cooking in Nepal and how it is progressing, and how does it relate to just the integrated energy planning which is going on overall in Nepal?
Thank you, Avi. A large proportion of households in Nepal today rely on traditional cooking methods which have adverse health, environmental, and climate livelihoods and gender impacts. Clean cooking is therefore an important development agenda for the government of Nepal, which has set ambitious targets for clean cooking adoption in the country. For example, the second nationally determined contribution plans for 25% of electric cooking adoption by 2030. The 15th plans to install 1 million electric cooking by 2023-24, and a white paper on energy projects 100% electric cook stove adoption by 2028. The revised SDG 7 roadmap aims for a reduction to 30% of households who resort to firewood for cooking and limits the use of LPG to less than 33% of households by 2030. Presently, it is estimated that around 500,000 households, that is only 7% of 6.8 million households, is using e-cooking. Therefore, Government of Nepal is focusing on promoting the use of e-cooking and upgrading electricity distribution infrastructure. Nepal government has declared the use of electric stoves will be made nationwide by displacing gas stoves within few years as the cost of LPG rose due to war in Ukraine. Importing LPG cost is about 4% of total budget of government in 2022, which is contributing to widening trade deficit with India, to materialize the federal, provincial, and local governments' announcement to reduce the LPG kitchens. Recently, National Planning Commission and Clean Cooking Alliance have together launched the promotion of e-cooking at provincial and local governments. Nepal has no option other than to go for e-cooking to reduce the import of LPG, helping to ease the pressure on foreign currency reserves and choosing a healthy life and come out of being sick of smoke using wood in our kitchen. WHO reports 24,000 deaths each year, mainly women and children due to smoke in household. In Nepal, we as government have obligation to reduce the deaths and help our people live a healthy life. This calls for a concrete action plan that can drive collective efforts to achieve the government of Nepal's ambitious targets. Accordingly, Nepal government has given the green signal to transfer the present subsidy given to LPG to electricity cooking, and announced gas stoves will be removed and electric stoves will be installed in the government officials of the federal government central office and metropolis within this month, October 2022. Also, government has reduced the customs duty for induction cook stoves from 15% to 1% to promote electric cooking. Despite such measures, there is a visible gap in the efforts undertaken and results and target to be achieved. We are finalizing the country action plan for promoting clean cooking in Nepal that prioritize e-cooking with important investment such as providing electricity tariff rebates for households using electric cooking to incentivize adoption, attracting investment in e-cooking manufacturing, ensuring quality assurance of electric cooking stoves and appliances, encouraging academia and private sector involvement to carry out adaptive research on clean cooking, introducing innovative business models such as the market aggregator model for electric cook stoves to attract the private sector, developing a robust after-sales repair and maintenance service network, support micro-business opportunity from electric cooking, introducing pay-as-you-go or low-cost EMI scheme for consumers for the purchase of e-cooking technologies, providing zero interest capital to financial institutions, cooperatives, and self-help groups to enable citizens to access funds for purchasing as well as entrepreneurs to invest in promoting e-cooking, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great overview of just what's happening in Nepal, and that's really helpful just in context. I know that a lot of players in our room also are interested in the Nepal market right now and how to sort of enter the Nepal market with their products as well. So that's a great overview. I wanted to move to Irene. And Irene, I know that you are working with Kenya Power and really looking into integrating electric cooking into your business model. So in terms of just how do you see, how does a utility like Kenya Power see the opportunity for electric cooking and the integration, and what does it mean for a business model and economics for a big utility like Kenya Power?
Thank you. In Kenya, we've seen a lot of acceleration in the last few years, where we've accelerated connectivity. We had about 35% connected, but now we are almost at 89, almost at 90% connectivity. So the opportunity here for e-cooking is big, because the people who've been connected in the last about 6-7 years are only using electricity for lighting and mostly for charging their phones. Some are maybe just for TV. So there is a huge potential, because it's very sad that our customers are not enjoying this new thing that they've got, the new energy that they've got. And so for Kenya Power, it's a huge opportunity for us, for people to start enjoying power, because we all know that it's cheaper to cook with electricity, it's healthier than to cook with charcoal or to cook with other biomass fuels. So the opportunity is there, and what we are doing is we've started educating customers. We've opened up what we call Pikana Power Demonstration Center, and we are opening others where we want to educate customers to start using electricity to cook. It's also an opportunity for us, because these customers, if they're only using electricity for only charging their phones and maybe just light, then it is not healthy for Kenya Power, because that means that customer is not a valuable customer to us. That is, I'm just, it's not polite, but how do I put it? They're not, I don't know how to put it, but we need that customer to use a little bit more power so that we are able to upgrade them to a place where it's easier for them for us to keep them connected. And they also would make a little profit for us. Also, when they start using electricity and they start enjoying it, then they're happy to pay for the little electricity that they pay. So it's an opportunity for us to educate them and for them to start using e-cooking. Yeah, that's how we see it.
That's great, that's great. And also, as we talk about just the opportunity for utilities, and we also talked about a little bit about the infrastructure financing, which Anna touched upon, I wanted to move to now Ben, who leads ATEC now, and I know that Ben is really focused on the carbon market, so wanted to, Ben, if you can just highlight the opportunity for carbon markets for electric cooking, both from just financing coming into the sector, but I know that as a company serving consumers, we are really also concerned about just the usage, and how can carbon markets also track usage and help in sort of tracking usage in a very important way. And I know that you have technology that helps you do that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Shokan. I think that's probably the most interesting point around electric cooking is it's not just electric cooking on its own, the benefits of that, but it's also the best cooking solution to look at from a data tracking, a metering and monitoring perspective as well. And it's also the most cost-effective solution. So, I mean, we do a biogas product and we have an electric cooking product. The cost involved to do remote monitoring, metering, et cetera, on biogas is a lot higher, because you then need to bring in all that technology and add that to the biogas system. While if you look at electric cooking, the electronics are already there, the metering's already effectively there, you just need that data connection point, which we do with a GSM SIM card. And I think what this really opens up for the cooking sector overall is, I think for a long time we've had a very strong focus towards sales and getting stoves into households. And I don't think that's a particularly bad thing to focus on, but we haven't really focused in on or had the access to the data to ask ourselves, are people actually using the stoves, or how much are they using it, and how do we actually shape or change behaviours or understand what we need to change in the product to increase that usage. And the beauty, I think, of electric cooking is sort of twofold. Number one, you have very, very accurate data to monitor how the cooking behaviour is happening. I mean, we can see down to the minute, basically, times of day that people are cooking, sort of how much power they're consuming, etc. So that gives us much greater insight of how people are using that. We can work with grid providers, governments to help around grid load management, et cetera, et cetera. But the second part that then does is, obviously, once we understand the usage data, we can then convert that usage data directly into carbon credits. And that's this new frontier, I think, that's coming in carbon markets. There's obviously a lot of interest and excitement in carbon credit markets for cooking, and I think there should be. I think it's a great opportunity. But if you look at the infrastructure or the way that we've traditionally done carbon credits up to now, and you look at the amount of money that's now coming in and the scale that's wanting to be seen, we need to start upgrading the way that we generate and verify these credits. And I think electric cooking is at the forefront of being able to do that, because we can actually do credits in a way that are highly verifiable. It's all based off usage data. There's no question of whether these credits happened or not. So I think that's a really big advantage, and that then not only is, I think, good for us scaling up from a technology perspective for the sector, but also then for us to be able to attract both premium pricing, being able to compete with nature-based solutions in carbon markets, which tend to get higher prices, and being able to build a sustainable sort of approach in the cooking sector. And I think just one last point on that usage side as well is I think it also really opens up an opportunity for the cooking sector through electric cooking to look at, okay, well, rather than just figuring out how we can use the carbon credit revenues to subsidise the product or fund our business operations, how can we actually start to look to offering this carbon revenue back to customers as well? And we're actually aligned on incentives, because the more that we can offer customers to become part of the carbon credit market, the better usage outcomes we're going to see, and things like stove stacking start to solve themselves once we start going down this pathway too. So I think we're at a really interesting stage and are going to find a lot of good opportunities moving forward through electric cooking and bringing in carbon markets as well.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, that's really insightful as well. We'll do things a little differently here, so I think we'll open it also for questions. A first round of questions right now before we ask some more questions which I have in my hand. So anybody has any questions just on the initial remarks? We have two questions. So I know Matt over there, if we can just go to him, and then we have two more after that. Please state your name and just the organization, and if you are addressing it to just the entire panel or to a specific person.
Sure. My name is Matt Evans from Environmental Commodity Partners. A question about the methodology for cooking. There's obviously for electric cooking. Technically, the gold standard TBD tech methodology measures better based on statistical sampling how much charcoal is saved. There's a new methodology that's been created that basically uses the electricity used, but then assumes charcoal savings from that, which is sort of using a default factor that's less of an accurate measure of the difference between what was used before in terms of charcoal and what was used after. How broadly do you think about that as you think about navigating? Obviously, there's some, like, people love technology, so it seems like there's a benefit, and maybe, you know, that's a better way, but the counter argument is it's actually less accurate in terms of measurement of reduced emissions.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a great question, because I think what we've now got with electric cooking is a very accurate way of calculating the emissions associated with the new technology. You can basically pull in the grid emissions factor of the grid. If you look at somewhere like Nepal, it's pretty much running on 100% renewable energy now, so it's a fantastic case example of the power of electric cooking and decarbonising cooking. But you still have this baseline factor, I think, that you're alluding to there, which is you have this assumption of, okay, how much were people using biomass previously? So the way that that's currently in the methodology is it's based on, much like any other carbon credit project, of what is the accepted behaviours within that particular community or country, and then looking at that as the baseline emissions, and then subtracting the new emissions off there. Now, is that actually the most accurate moving forward? I'm not a gold standard technical expert. I think hopefully there is better ways moving forward, but I think that's probably the best option we've got right now on the baseline side. But I think with electric cooking, you're removing what's called over-crediting risk, in that at least on the other side of the ledger, you're actually then just calculating very accurately at least how much usage is happening, and then using that against the baseline. You don't have potential ambiguity on both sides of the ledger in that circumstance.
Okay. My name is Peter Balancer. I work with Express Gas. So no doubt electric cooking is the cleanest form of cooking, but have you guys considered the problems in Africa, such as unreliable supply of electricity? In some countries, the availability of electricity is about 50%. And then there's also the issue of overloaded transformers resulting in low voltage in homes. So using electricity to cook becomes a problematic. So yes, it is good to go with electric cooking, but let's also consider the difficulties we face in Africa, such as unreliable power supply and low voltage. And second, and thirdly, too, we also have the issue of substandard electrical cables and sockets and all those things, sometimes resulting in households getting bent. So to be able to get this working, we need to look at all these three factors to ensure that electric cooking is able to come true.
Irene, do you want to add this? And Anna, you can also add to it. Irene, you go ahead, please. And you go ahead, please. And then Anna, if you can add to anything from your research perspective as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I can say we've looked at that. In Kenya, one of the things that we're looking at is reliability. We are checking the transformers that are overloaded. If we find out a place is overloaded, we try and split the transformers so that we can have 2 transformers that feed that area. The other thing is that the last mile customers, more often than not, we were maximizing 1 transformer, whereby within 600 meters, those customers are the customers that we give power, then another 600 meters. So for those ones, we can't say that they get low voltage. For the one thing that we're really looking at right now is stability of power. And most people will tell you that it's not that we have improved. The one thing that we know is that we've improved. A lot of people will complain that, yes, I can't cook with power because it might go off. But if you ask most Kenyans, when is the last time you had a blackout? Most of them cannot remember. Because it's just a perception for Kenya now. They can't remember. But because of the perception that it's a bad thing to cook with power or to have power, or Kenya Power is unreliable, you don't trust it. So we always tell people, just like you have gas, when you're cooking with gas, you must have another cylinder, because if it goes off, if this one gets finished, you need another one. It's good to have a backup. So if you have a blackout, have the backup. Something else to cook with, but not charcoal. Go clean. That's what I would say. Go clean. Maybe go to charcoal or go to cocoa, because now we have cocoa. I think that was it on reliability.
Yes, no, that's great. Thank you. And I know we have Anna, if you want to add something from what research shows also from Tanzania and Uganda.
Thank you. Yeah, unreliability is sometimes a problem and often a very big perception problem. Certainly in Uganda, talking about electric cooking, people often say, but it's too unreliable, what will happen when it goes down? But actually it is improving year on year, and many people cook on electricity with no problems, or if they do have a problem, as Irene said, they pick up the food, put it into something else, and keep cooking on LPG. And I know many people around Dar es Salaam in Tanzania are happily using electric pressure cookers like that, pivoting to gas if they need to, and it happens much more rarely than you actually think. I think it's really important that we continue to see products designed and made in Africa, because then they're much more likely to be suited to the particular voltage conditions there. So hoping to continue to see that and see more of it. We as MEX, we have a couple of research programs at the moment on battery-supported cooking, both off-grid but also on-grid. So investigating whether or not having a battery backup while you're cooking on-grid gives you that extra sense of security that you're going to be able to finish your meal. That's ongoing at the moment. Yeah.
Thanks. Ben, I know that from a product development perspective also, is there any insight in terms of how do you take care of like under-level grid, if anything can be done in the product development process, if it can be maybe changed to just take care of some of the under-level or low voltage grids as well?
Yeah, look, I think there's 2 points there. Number one, it's always interesting. I mean, we're based majority in Asia, but it's always interesting when we come to Africa. We were having this same conversation, particularly in Southeast Asia 5 years ago. What about grid reliability? What about grid reliability? And then just now we're not, because the grid's just become reliable. And so I think Africa's probably, it is heading in the same direction. I hope in 5 years we don't have this grid reliability discussion. Not to put you on the spot there, Irene, but hopefully that's the way where it goes, because it is a problem for a period of time until it's not. And I think that's where it's going to happen. From a technological perspective, and I'm sure every single person in this entire room is the same, we all have multiple cooking solutions in our household. I have 6. Who was I speaking to yesterday? Had 11 cooking solutions. I was blown away. They had 11 different cooking. This is, I think it was in England, in their house. They had 11 different cooking solutions in their house. So I don't think this question of is it ever going to be 100% electric. What we're interested in is that 90-95% of daily cooking. Like for me at my house, 90 to 95% of my cooking is on my induction stove, which is a Bosch stove in my house. But I still have 7 cooking solutions, including something if there is ever an electrical problem.
Thank you, Ben. I know I saw Rocio's hand. Do you still have a question? Can we have the mic over there? Yeah, and after that, please, if you can go ahead after that.
Hi, I have 2 questions. You may know, you may not know the answer. How clean needs the grid need to be clean to be able to claim that clean cooking is, or electric cooking is the cleanest solution? How clean? And then the second question is, do we have, why is so much echo? Never mind. Any statistics about penetration of electric pressure cookers in any of the countries?
Do you want to take any question about how do you? Okay. And Dr. Surin, do you want to talk about the second question on percentage? Okay.
Yeah. So by clean, I'm guessing you're saying less carbon emissions is what you're referring to. Yep. So basically, there's a specific calculation under the new gold standard methodology called the useful energy calculation that then you put in what's called the grid emissions factor to calculate is it a net improvement or non-improvement on carbon emissions. Pretty much only if you're running a 100% coal grid are you going to see a net negative or a neutral result. Basically, anything that's better than 100% coal, you're going to see a net reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from electric cooking.
Thanks, Ben. And Dr. Surin, any in Nepal, do you have any estimate of what is the penetration of electric cooking right now?
My friend Mondasi, please clear the point from Nepal point of view.
Any suggestion, Karuna or Mondasi, on just penetration of electric cooking in Nepal?
Not very much right now.
Okay, less than 2%. Okay, so it's fairly low.
So what we are suggesting here is that the technology, that EPC, which has been promoted now, is what we are looking at. There may has been a lot of rice cookers and other type of sort of a cooking device that been used before in mostly urban areas. But when we are suggesting the questions perhaps is looking at EPC, right? Electrical pressure cookers, right? That's
just
what probably.
All sorts of electric cooking solution through the grid. Yeah.
Right. So it depends on which type of sort of technology that we are saying that would change the percentage-wise. But still, it's very less than 5% is what we think right now.
And that is something which I think some of the research also shows where we work is that it's quite less. And please go ahead with the gentleman. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jasmeet and I'm representing Fair Climate Fund. So we work on the cook stoves and the carbon markets, and looking at the electric cooking, it's very important to understand like what is the benchmark, what you are replacing. And when I hear the problem of quality of power and availability of power, I perceive that you are looking forward for more urban populations, which might not be using fuel woods in their baseline scenario. So in that way, the carbon case is becoming less attractive, that if we are focusing electric cooking is more urban product, if it is carbon driven, or going to the actually rural areas. So what is your perspective that electric cooking as of now in a near short term is a solution for urban areas, not for the rural, if it is driven by carbon markets? Is this statement is right to understand, or?
Anybody who wants to take this question on? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question as well. I think it's a tale of two continents, and I think I'm learning this a lot as well, is there's what's happening in Asia and what's happening in Africa. So if you look in Africa, the urban biomass cookers, and I'm much less familiar with Africa, so please correct me if I get this wrong, but there's a lot more charcoal use in urban areas in Africa. So I think in Africa, particularly urban, peri-urban, there's quite a lot of potential around carbon credits in urban, peri-urban areas in multiple markets in Africa. Asia, a different story. In Asia, you've got more high use of LPG or other gas-type solutions in urban areas. But what you've got in Asia is you've got a very high level of grid penetration into rural areas now. So our focus in Asia is predominantly on wood users in rural areas who have recently received the grid. In Africa, we're seeing more urban, peri-urban, where they have the grid but are still using charcoal. So it's a bit different across both markets.
Yeah, I think just Asian continent like Nepal or India, as suggested.
I think this is Mr. Manoj, also policy analysis from the Nepal government, also working very closely with Dr. Kanna. Mr. Mohandas, please go ahead.
Just my view is that you are right, the penetration in India or Bangladesh or Nepal is quite huge in terms of electricity, but most of the penetration just goes into first tier uses, that is basically using the bulb. So that's more on a rural setting or upcoming towns. And they do use a lot of fuel, woods for fuel. So if you are targeting that, and definitely the issue initially suggested that there are two issues that needs to be looked at in terms of electricity infrastructure. One is that the structure system is weak in terms of transformers, substations and other wires and etc. That's something that needs to be upgraded. It has a higher cost in terms of how you provide electricity. So that's one. I think that if that happens, then quicker in terms of climate change, climate credit will be much more higher if we are in sort of penetrating electrical cooking. The second one is more towards household wiring system itself. It's weak. So if they promote that, then it will be useful. So there is a sort of a complex challenges to look at.
Thank you. We have one more question from the gentleman over there.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Enoch Ejapong, Director at the Renewable Energy Association of Ghana. Wow, a lot of echo. So I happen to have picked an e-cookbook from a friend who just gave it to me today. We've been working on other things and he showed it to me. And I see interesting representations he has in there about comparing LPG and other things. So let's say I'm jumping straight ahead into action. If we want to adapt this, for those of you who's making it work in your places, who are the key stakeholders to bring around the table for the conversation? Because when I think back and look at, for example, renewable energy technologies and its adaptation, one of the biggest hurdles have been such that people have worked in silos. Okay, so you want to work around things and you're later told that the electricity distribution company having done the grid impact studies, they haven't done the load analysis, etc. And you're held back. So I'm just looking at it in the sense that if people are saying they are now able to change their cooking habits, okay, and they're able to cook with electricity with a current percentage at 1%, right, and we want to leapfrog and move forward, who are the key actors to bring around the table, and what should be the conversation with these persons? Thank you.
Can I take, yeah. Yes, thank you for that question. The people that you need depend on where you are. So an aim is to get this integrated energy planning process happening. So who is involved in creating energy planning in the enabling environment in the government? What ministries need to be around that table? And that depends on the country, depending on how things are organized. So that's the first group of stakeholders. Then bringing in the utility, they need to be around the table for sure, in terms of slanting their planning towards including electric cooking. And then the other ones are the supply chains. Who are the actors in the supply chains? Who is already bringing in electric appliances, specifically electric cooking appliances, who could be engaged with to then start to bring in these highly efficient appliances which enable this transformation to happen. And then the final group, or many groups of people that need to be addressed, are who are the people who will start to change minds? How do we combat this lack of awareness about how electric cooking is actually affordable and viable and easy to do? Again, that's a combination of people. We have, in various different countries, champions on social media who put up recipes on electric pressure cookers, make a lot of noise around it. Video segments, Shamba Shape Up in Kenya doing video segments on e-cooking, so bringing in the media. I guess the answer is who you need. It's kind of everyone at different times, at different points, and working on slightly different things. But yeah, really important to have an integrated energy strategy, whether or not that comes about as an e-cooking strategy or a clean cooking strategy or some kind of roadmap. Then engaging the supply chain sector, explaining the opportunity that's about to occur, and then moving into the awareness raising space.
That's an interesting question. I wanted to also have Ben the opportunity to answer that from a venture perspective or from a company perspective. What kind of partnerships do you think are really important, and if you are entering or just trying to supply in a new country any electric solution product? And I know that you are trying to do it in a few countries, so what are some of the partnerships which are very important at the early stage?
Yeah, that's not always an easy question, but I think it's, I think Anna summed it up pretty well. So I think really the only other factor that we need to start considering in now, inclusive of what was just discussed, was then if we're pursuing a carbon opportunity as well, is then who is that carbon buyer, and then how can we structure that in the best way possible that then actually maximizes the uptake, and not just uptake, but then usage of the technology into the future. And I think this is probably both the great opportunity and the great challenge where we're at the sector. Is for us, we need to be very cognizant that carbon credit buyers, they're commercial buyers buying a product over an extended period of time. And our job as the sector is to make sure that we're putting in a product that is used over an extended period of time. And I think if we don't do this well moving forward, we're going to run the risk of killing the goose that laid the golden egg, or whatever the metaphor is. Because if we're not actually ensuring that the technology is being used, potentially we're going to have issues of actually not being able, turning buyers away from the cook stove sector. And in recent meetings I've had, this is already being started to flag by potential buyers that, would we touch cook stove credits in the more traditional way? I think really electric cooking has that advantage of being able to take it down this data verified way that removes a lot of that concern and risk for the sector as well.
We'll just take two more questions and then we'll give the opportunity to the panel to give some final remarks as well. Yeah, please go ahead.
My name is Pantaleon with Up Energy. My question is both for CCA and Irene. As we are trying to increase productive usage of the grid, how are we first as a sector trying to influence governments in Africa who have been battling with undersupply of electricity to start to think about subsidizing, either reducing the tariff to import or bring in or even manufacture devices that actually increase the usage of electricity, because right now they are undersupplying, so it doesn't make sense to them now. In the future, probably it would. And also for entities like Kenya Power, how are you within the government structure influencing either the Ministry of Internal Revenue on tax, to also think about taxation for companies who are trying to either develop products or services that increases productive usage for the grid, and what the P&L would look like, either what they lose in tax revenue are they able to make in electricity usage revenue, sort of kind of relationship. Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll quickly answer the CCA perspective and any sort of market builder perspective. Obviously, we work at all the levels of the value chain, and I think that's really important as you try to build the electric cooking market. For example, now we are working with we work with everybody here as well in terms of just the electric cooking. Nepal is, we are working at a national level at Nepal to influence the electric cooking policy in Nepal. We are also working with other market building organizations such as MEX, and we work at the venture level also with Ben. And we can talk a little bit more about CCA's work in electric cooking also as going forward. I wanted to give Irene some opportunity to talk from KPLC's perspective on how you are thinking about this question.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure I caught the question.
Okay, so I think the question is
the echo. I'm not sure I understood what he was asking.
Can you repeat the question for KPLC, please?
Within government institutions, how are entities like Kenya Power able to influence, within still the same government, other bodies who would benefit from tax revenue from companies who are trying to increase productive usage, such that they either reduce the tax or expectation from those companies, allowing them to expand more, to then provide more product at cheaper price, allowing for more productive usage. And if we have visibility on the P&L of that entire transaction, what we lose here on tax revenue, do we make more than enough on electric usage revenue? Yeah.
Okay. I think you're asking about tax reduction. So far, we are working with partners. The partners are working with, what we have done is that we've tried to approach the government so that we can see if we can have taxes reduced on the energy efficient appliances that are coming into the country. But we haven't gotten there yet. We are still working together with them and trying to talk so that we can get to a place where we can have that. So far what we're doing is just educating the customers on what is available, on the appliances that are available, and of course working with the government so that we can have the strategy come up. So we've not reached that stage where we can get to the tax level. Let me put it that way. First, we're just educating the customer what is in the market. This is what is in the market, because a lot of times they don't even know what is in the market. And then from there, we're trying to see, can we link them to financiers so that they are able to buy those appliances maybe twice, in 2 installments, in 3 installments. So those are the things that the gaps that we are taking, because the costs are high. For now, no tax reductions. I don't know if I've answered you. If I haven't, I'm available outside. We can talk, because I'm not sure I understood your question.
Yeah, everyone the opportunity to, everybody will be available after this room as well. This will be used for something else, but all of us will be outside so you can address more questions. I think we started the conversation with how so much has changed in the electric cooking market in the last 3 years since the last conference. And we talked about a lot of things that are happening in the current market right now, but I wanted to end with what are our panelists' view on what's happening in the future. So the question for everyone here is what new important new trend will be talking about at the next year's conference or in 2024 maybe. So if everybody, starting from Ben, Irene, Anna, and then Dr. Suren, if we can just take 2 minutes to just give us a glimpse of the future.
So this is like the futurist question, yeah?
Yes.
We all have to become mini futurists. Okay. All right. Well, keeping with the theme of kind of what I've been talking about on this panel, we're either going to be here in 2 years, and we'll have synchronized up solving the cooking problem and solving the carbon credits or decarbonisation problem, and we'll have pulled these perfect or much closer together and thinking of it as one holistic system, or we'll be crying into our laps because we've blown up the whole carbon credit opportunity. One of those two.
I hope we won't be crying. For us in the future, we hope to have educated at least the bulk of the Kenyans, almost 100% of the Kenyans, about the clean cooking, especially e-cooking in Kenya, and the fact that it's actually cheaper to cook with electricity than to cook with any other available energies that are there, energy sources that are there. And we hope that people will have changed behaviors and actually gotten to board, come on board, and that those customers that are just using electricity just for their phones and lighting will at least be having other appliances in the homes than just what they're having. That is what we're hoping in. By 20, actually we have a goal. By 2028, we want to be 100% clean cooking.
So I hope not to be crying also. I think we'll nail the carbon thing. I would hope to be talking about many more countries pursuing an integrated approach to cooking and electrification, many more countries leveraging money that's already going in to the electricity sector and is planned to keep going in to the electricity sector, slanting that and being cognitive of the e-cooking opportunity and doing that in hand, so it's not kind of an afterthought, so it's planned in. So I think there'll be many more countries on the list that are doing that. I think we'll see much greater penetration of pay-go electric cooking, which will really helps to bring down the upfront cost of these appliances, which can be, of course, prohibitive for people to get stuck in right away. So I think pay-go e-cooking is going to have penetrated quite far by that point. And I think we'll also have a lot more data on, real data on demand stimulation and how much demand is stimulated, can be stimulated by electric cooking, what works to stimulate demand, and what revenue that translates to for the electricity sector, and therefore what effect that has. At the moment, we have a lot of modeling on that, but as more countries start to roll out and promote electric cooking, we'll actually get much more data to be able to talk about next time.
Thank you, Anna. And Dr. Karna, from Nepal's perspective, where do you see Nepal in 2 years in terms of electric cooking penetration?
Yeah, nothing to say more. Please continue your efforts. And I fully agree with all panelists. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And in terms of just the, I think that we are at time now, so we'll stop. But as I mentioned, all of us will be outside to talk to people as well. I also wanted to plug in that there are a lot of electric cooking booths outside as well. ATEC is on display. There's a MEX booth as well, where there are a lot of electric cooking solutions. There's a few other companies also as well. So please check out the Innovation Expo outside as well. And thank you, everyone, for participating here. And thank you especially to our panelists. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists.